Well, thank you everyone for joining me for a brand new year and a brand new round of Bible topics. The live internet studies long class, the long video that's usually uploaded on Saturday mornings, is going to expand from 1 hour to an hour and a half. We'll still have two topics, two sessions. The first session is, I think the running title is something like Eschatology, and a biblical study of end-time events, something like that. It will be, as far as I can, it's not a comprehensive study, but we're going to cover a lot of topics. So it's a prophecy study, end-time prophecy, eschatology, end-time studies. We're going to actually go through the entire book of Revelation, not quite verse by verse, but we'll stop along the way to hit all the relevant passages. But along the journey, we're going to be sure to hit and look at the book, some major prophecy books, Old Testament books, Daniel being one of them. We're going to pull in, prophecies from Isaiah, Zechariah, Joel, some of the major and the minor prophets. But there's going to be a lot of information, and we'll also be looking at, obviously, Yeshua's thoughts on end time, Matthew chapter 24, all of discourse, as it shows up in Mark, I think 13, and Luke 17 and 21 as well. Paul had some words to say about end time events in his letters to 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, things like that. So there are lots of passages that we're going to be dealing with, but it's an overall prophecy study, end time prophecy, eschatology, with the basic outline, the running what should I say, foundational book is the book of Revelation itself. So if you want to call it a Revelation study, that's one, you can call it that. If you want to call it an end time study, that's something else. Lots of topics to hit there. We'll kind of give you an overview tonight. And then the second 30-minute session, this one will be only 30 minutes again, in case you don't stick around for it, but I hope you do, is we're going to be, as I mentioned, going out of last year, we're going to be using biblicalunitarian.com's website, which you can see on my screen now. They've got a list of common verses from the Old and New Testament that they believe are Unitarian-speaking verses. So they're going to take favorite Trinitarian passages, and they're going to provide a Unitarian, they have already done so, they're not doing it now, they've already done it, provided a Unitarian take on it and what they feel is a better way to understand the passages. For my part, as a Trinitarian believer, Orthodox, Messianic, Jewish Trinitarian, I'm going to turn around and refute or reply to, rebut, or answer, fill in the blank with whatever you think feels correct, their perspective of those passages, and I'm going to try to anchor them back into what I believe are Trinitarian understandings. And so this session is loosely titled something like Answering Biblical Unitarianism or something like that, Refuting Biblical Unitarianism. That's what it'll feel like. It's an apologetics course. It fits nicely as a kind of a continuation of my Shema discussions on the issues of Trinity study that is available on my website, which is a complete study. But I felt it would be nice to start a new study, similar theme, but its own standalone study, where it is more apologetics and less just kind of encyclopedic information like the Shema study was. This one is specifically apologetic based. So we'll start that tonight. So without further ado, you'll have to excuse me. I still got this tickling cough in my throat that just makes me cough every now and then. I can't get rid of it. Well, I will get rid of it one day, just not tonight. So let's talk about why study prophecy. Again, this segment is an hour long, and so let's just jump right into it. Let me do this first. Before I talk about why study prophecy, let me show you the working outline that I'm working from. It's still only a Word document. There isn't even, since I've really got I've been scrambling for the last 2 weeks. I went into boot camp mode. I've been reading through so many Old Testament and New Testament prophecies. I reread the book of Revelation twice during the 2-week period. My goal wasn't to speed read it, but to familiarize myself with the materials again. And I had some old prophecy end time studies notes that I put together 20 years ago that I pulled out of storage, as it were, and I dusted them off, and I'm kind of retooling them because my views of end time prophecies have kind of updated in 20 years, which is a good thing. So let me borrow that outline, and it's subject to change as the weeks go on. I don't envision this will last a year. I don't even envision it'll last 6 months. 3 months is what I'm picturing in my mind, so it'll be a kind of a fast and furious study, but I hope I don't go too fast to lose you. So let's look at this real quick. This is just a Word document. There is no official web page. There's no, what do I call, an official commentary that I've written on this study. This will feel more like almost an unplugged study where I'm just grabbing screen resources from the internet, screenshots of other resources and charts, and sharing them on my screen here with you all on YouTube and such. And I will also be utilizing obviously the Bible. Hopefully, if you'll gather this will be primarily a Bible study where I'm just taking the passage in question, and that's primarily the resource. So we're going to be just pulling up the Book of Revelations or the Book of Revelation or whatever relevant passage, and it'll be in front of us most of the time. So it's called Eschatology, a biblical study of end time events. I'm the author of this study, but it'll be a curation, as it were, of different resources as well. So I don't own all the topics, obviously. The term eschatology is a little confusing to some. Webster's defines it as a noun. The plural is eschatologies. It comes from the Greek of eschatos, which refers to last or farthest. And the first usages of this go way back to 1844 of this particular term. It's a branch of theology concerned with the final events in the history of the world or of mankind. It's a belief concerning the death, the end of the world, or the ultimate destiny of mankind, specifically any of various Christian doctrines concerning the second coming, the resurrection of the dead, or of the last judgment. And in this topic of eschatology, as you're going to find out, as we're looking at my outline of some of the topics that we're going to be hitting, remember, this is a skeleton view. This is like an outline, which means there's a lot of stuff in the middle that we're going to flesh out as we go. So let's read down through them, just the topics, and you'll see that there's going to be a lot of information. It's not just the Book of Revelation, but, and again, the topical schedule is subject to modification. I may change some of these around as we go, but for now, this is what I've got. This is the kind of the penciled in version. Topic 1 is an introduction to eschatology. Why study prophecy? We will start there tonight. We'll start looking at one web resource. So that's the first one. Then topic 2, see if I can highlight them. There we go. Topic 2, hermeneutics, the study of how to interpret. There are many ways to interpret end time prophecy and biblical prophecy. And so I'm no different. I have my own preferred views and what I feel are more accurate views, but that doesn't presume that I'm right. So I have to bring in other perspectives because there are insights that we can glean, and there are objections that could be made to other perspectives. So it's always good to have comparisons of other views. It's going to help sharpen your own perspective. Even if your own perspective is very comfortable, it's best to familiarize yourself with other topics so that you can at least allow other perspectives to challenge yours, to sharpen your own. And who knows, sometimes you change. As I read through different passages, I had started with one perspective and I end up with a different perspective when I studied out through the lens of someone else. So that's a key topic that we have to hit before we even begin to look at the eschatology. Topic 3 will be key scriptural passages, parts 1 and 2. That's where we're going to bring in as many passages. It's not comprehensive. It's also just key passages. Those of you who are prophecy buffs or end time students of the Bible, you already know that parts of Daniel are key. Parts of the Gospels are key, like Matthew 24, the Olivet Discourse from Yeshua. Parts of Paul, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians are key passages, and obviously the Book of Revelation, but many Old Testament prophets, Isaiah being a premier prophet. We're going to have to look at some of the other smaller prophetic books, Zechariah, Zephaniah, Amos, Joel, Hosea. Those are all books that we have to bring into our study so we can get a better understanding and handle on end time prophecy, which itself is a very tricky topic. We will also be looking at Daniel 73 week more particular, more specific as we kind of zero in, because it is a key passage to understanding end time events, and it deserves its own topic, not just an overview. We'll also look at the final 70th week of Daniel in that prophetic overview in this particular study. And if you don't know what that means, don't worry, we'll get to it. What does it mean? What is it? Final 70th week? Why should I care? Why is he talking about a calendar and a schedule? If you've never studied prophecy, don't worry, it'll make sense then. Topic 6, and again, these aren't set in stone as far as the topics, the titles, and the order in which they're in. I may rearrange them as the Holy Spirit leads me. The book of Revelation will drive the study itself. Overview of some key events. This is an outline that I myself put together. There are numerous ones I could have pulled from the internet. I decided to take my hand at it and just put my own version of the overview of how I perceive the book of Revelation lays out, how it presents itself, some of the timings of how the events are laid out. Is there kind of a sequence of events, as you will, et cetera, et cetera. So that'll reserve its own topic. Continuing with the book of Revelation, again, it really is the book of Revelation is going to be underpinning or undergirding, as it were, foundationally holding up and propping up the whole study. We will, as I mentioned, not really read through the entire book of Revelation, but we will look at each passage. All 22 chapters will be examined for the key events that are in those. I need to save room for reading key parts of bringing in the parts of the TaNaKH as they are supporting the book of Revelation. Remember, John didn't just write everything in a vacuum. Yeshua delivered it to him. Yeshua used angels to deliver the message to him. But it's drawing from a lot of Old Testament truths that have already been given. And so if you have no understanding of the Old Testament as you're reading through the book of Revelation, you are not going to understand the book of Revelation. Plain and simple. I think every Bible prophecy teacher would agree with me there, and student. The Old Testament is a must. It's not optional. We have to use the Old Testament to understand the book of Revelation. Moving along with topics. Topic 8, rapture views. This is a hot topic. Views of the rapture, timings of the rapture, the second coming of Messiah. Is there even a rapture? Some Christians would even ask. We're going to be looking at that. Deserves its own topic. There are differing rapture views out there, about 3 or 4 main views, some minor views that kind of go along with it. But this is a more centered in Christian theology. Judaism isn't really looking for a rapture, as is kind of understood. But so we'll look at that. It deserves its own topic, and I look forward to bringing in my own perspective. Along with that, topic 9, making a case for a pre-wrath view. The pre-wrath view is a perspective that some have heard, some have not. I think it deserves its own topic because it's one of the views that's under most of the attack. When it comes to Christian circles, it feels like it's the Johnny-come-lately view, so it deserves its own examination. Topic 10, rapture views of final analysis, kind of a start and then dig down in, and then a final analysis there, kind of self-explanatory in the topic heading there. Topic 11, Mystery Babylon discussion, part 1. If you have never contemplated the identity of Mystery Babylon in the book of Revelation, where that phrase Mystery Babylon shows up about not quite 7 times, but the topic of Mystery Babylon as it pertains to eschatology, end time events, and future events that await us, and as it's driven by an understanding of Babylon in the past. Remember, there were actually 2 Babylons in the past, right? There's the Babylon that was like 1600 BC, that one way with Hislop's Babylon or whatever, or Hammurabi's Babylon, that Babylon way back as in Tower of Babel, Book of Genesis Babylon. And then there's what we call Neo-Babylon or Chaldean Babylon, the one that shows up in the 5th or 6th century in the book of Daniel. Daniel, the one that captured Judah and exiled her. So the Babylonian exile in 586, et cetera, BC. That's the second Babylon. But then now we have this mystery Babylon that shows up in the book of Revelation, right? Who is she? We're going to talk, that deserves 2 whole topics. Fascinating study, quite controversial for some. I hope you stick around for that one. Mystery Babylon discussion part 2. And then topic 13, addressing questions and answers, part 1, and topic 14, addressing questions and answers, part 2. This will be a very unique class topic. If enough questions and or objections or comments are generated by the previous 12 topics in the YouTube videos and by the iTunes files, shows that are uploaded, then I will try to either maybe make that a live session, the addressing questions and answers, hitting the questions and answers that you viewers and are sending in. I'll culminate all those. I'll take 2 whole topics for that. Or if I can't do the live version of it, I will simply you can see my screen and I'll just show you the questions and answers, and I'll kind of hit them in real time. Well, not real time, but in the live session. So, and record them and upload them as a whole video. So that's the overview of the outline for the eschatology class. Let's now turn to the first topic. This first study, the first session, this first show, may be an hour long. It may not be an hour long. Depends on how far I want to keep going. Because, like I said, this is still kind of a under construction study. But let's talk about why study prophecy. Why should we even be concerned with end time events? What's going to take place in the future? I mean, if you are a Christian and you're saved, doesn't that really take care of everything? Right? Won't everything just kind of pan out and wash out and God will kind of handle everything? I don't need to really concern myself. Well, yes and no. Let's look at it. This is a view of this question through the lens of one particular author's blog, solagroup.org. This isn't, of course, the final perspective, and everyone's going to have their own opinions on why they study prophecy. But I tried to provide a comprehensive overview by Reverend Bill Lee Warner. Let's entertain his blog here and see what he has to say. So he starts out, a question often asked of us, Christians obviously, is, with so many important subjects in God's Word, why should I study end time prophecy? And he says, that's a good question, and every believer should be able to answer it. And then he lists some points that he thinks should be considered as to why we should study prophecy. So his first point, its first answer number 1, a study of prophecy expands the believer's understanding of the purposes, plans, and person of God. He said person of God. I think he meant to say persons, but because I believe he's a Trinitarian. And I have to agree with him. Most of what I'm going to read here, I agree. I've already vetted this particular resource, so I think it's very helpful. Let me see if I can blow that up and make it a little bit bigger for my students are going to be watching this later on. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So as we are going to realize, end time prophecy, and even what we might call near time prophecy, where it was an historical event that was prophesied in near time to the people who were going to experiencing whatever event was being foretold. What we have to realize when we're looking at prophecy is that there's an historical perspective that was relevant for the people of that day that needed to hear what was going to happen immediately around the corner. Even if some of that can be applied to what we might call still future events for us, the immediacy of the importance of those historical details for the immediate audience, right? The people, the contemporary audience, we might call it, is another reason why biblical prophecy should be looked at. Because it's part of the Bible, because it's part of God's Word, it's authoritative, and we can glean insights, even if they are what we might call inferences or spiritual insights or allegorical insights from the prophecies. Even if they don't pertain to us directly, like it's a no-brainer that many of the prophecies of the Old Testament and the New Testament are written to Israel as a people group. And so if you're not Jewish, if you're not if you don't consider yourself part of Israel, ethnic Israel, then it's easy to simply dismiss prophecy and say, well, that's not for me. It doesn't speak to me. Why do I need to study it? But I promise you that, especially when it comes to end time prophecy as pertains to what still awaits us as a church, if you take that perspective like I do, of what we call the futurist perspective, which borrows from the historic or the historicist perspective, and you don't simply take what's known as the preterist perspective, where everything's simply in the past. If you're still looking for future prophecies to be fulfilled as a Christian, then you definitely need to study end time prophecy, because it's going to heavily influence how you conduct your life as you look for and wait for the second coming of Messiah Yeshua here on planet Earth, the Rapture, the Tribulation, and all the other nasties that are going to be coming our way, if you think we're going to be going through those. All right, so he continues with his answer. A significant percentage of Scripture, as I already mentioned, is prophetic in nature, right? And this is just a no-brainer. I don't know if you knew that, but a significant portion of it is. He continues, the Old Testament has over 300 prophecies regarding the first coming of Christ, all of which were fulfilled literally. We're going to find, as we look at different perspectives, remember if I go back to my outline of some of the topics that we're going to be looking at during the study. Sorry about that. If you look at topic number 2, you'll see that we're going to be looking at the study of how to interpret, meaning there are different perspectives of how to view not just end-time prophecy, but even as we get down to topic number 8, there are different views on the rapture. Did it already take place? Is it not going to take place? Is it future? Are we going to go through the wrath of God? Are we going to go through the tribulation? Things like that. So the Old Testament has quite a few passages about the prophecy of the second coming, of the first coming and the second coming of Yeshua. And when it comes to the first coming, in hindsight, using the historical lens now, because that's history, we can now look back at those prophecies and realize that they were fulfilled literally, some of them allegorically, but most of them were fulfilled in literal fashion. They are real history. And so that's an important part of prophecy. It kind of gives us a drive and impetus to look forward to future prophecies to be fulfilled literally, not just symbolically, right? As you're going to see when we start looking through the book of Revelation, there are quite a number of symbols and metaphors and phrases and words that are not to be taken literally. There's no way they can be taken literally. So they're obviously symbolic, and the genre of that type of book is very confusing at times to people. You know, lions and tigers and bears, oh my, right? Lots of beasts and animals and angels and four living creatures and you know, a dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and things like that. So we're going to have to tread very carefully, but we should never lose sight of the fact that it's quite probable that John was writing words that were to be understood to be pointing to real events, real history, real people, real nations, real spiritual entities, you know, the beast pointing to the Antichrist and or Satan, et cetera, things like that. So this author continues. He says, also included in the Old Testament are prophecies dealing with the second coming of Christ, right? That's why it's end time prophecy, and that also drives its importance. He continues. The New Testament has significant sections of prophetic literature, as I kind of alluded to, Matthew 24, Luke 21, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, and the book of Revelation as well. He didn't list Daniel and such from the Old Testament, but we already know that they are there. And so we're going to have to deal with those. These particular passages in the Old Testament, as well as many references to the second coming, are going to warrant our careful attention. I don't know about you, but I'm actually very, very fascinated about the second coming of Messiah and what we might call the end time events that are waiting for us around the corner. Even if, as a believer, I'm of the understanding that that there's a good amount of bad stuff that I'm not going to have to experience. So whether you take what's known as the popular pre-tribulational, pre-millennial view perspective of end-time rapture events, where the church is suddenly raptured away before any bad stuff falls on planet Earth, where the great tribulation of 7 years, so to say, the so-called tribulation of 7 years takes place. If that's your perspective, then it's still of importance for you to study end-time prophecy, because in my opinion, as a Christian, you owe it to yourself to reach out to your unsaved loved ones, friends, family members, coworkers, etc., and explain to them, number one, you need to be prepared for what's about to happen on planet Earth. And the only way you can truly be prepared is to fall on your knees and accept Jesus as Lord. That's first and foremost. Allow the Holy Spirit to come into you, allow your eyes to be open and your ears to be unstopped, so that you can begin to be prepared for what's about to happen on planet Earth. At the very least, you need to be among those who are raptured out of the earth before the tribulation starts, if that's your perspective of end times. That's a good reason to study end time prophecy. But another reason is because not all of us believe, not all Bible students out there believe that we're going to be suddenly excused from all of the bad stuff. Some of us believe that we're going to go through a good chunk of the tribulation only to be raptured before the final wrath of God is poured out, the final really heavy bad stuff, right? The concentrated tribulation, the great tribulation, if you want to call it that. Others believe that we're going to go through the entire 7-year mess and we're not going to be raptured to the final end of that. And some still believe that there's not even going to be a rapture. We're just going to go through all of this, kind of slide smoothly into the millennium. Some don't believe there is a millennium, right? So lots of perspectives, but all of it is important when we're studying end-time prophecy.